All right, team, we are going to record. Would you like to just get going here? We have about 26 participants with us. Does that work? Wonderful.
That's good.
Thank you, everyone. Before we get going, I do want to just let you know that we are going to be recording this session. So if you do not wish to have your face in the recording, please make sure that you are aware of that and you turn your video off or keep your video off while we are presenting. With that, good afternoon. I am Erin Mahoney, and I am an executive consultant with the Equity, Disproportionality, and Design team at the South County SELPA in Southern San Diego. And we are here today for our session one, part one of a series with the National Center for Urban School Transformation, or NCUST, on promoting clarity. And we are so excited to have you here today. Our workshop is in collaboration, as I shared, with the South County SELPA and the Equity and Disproportionality and Design Project and the National Center for Urban School Transformation. And here at the Equity, Disproportionality, and Design Project, our mission is really preventing disproportionality in our schools and promoting equity. And so we are so excited to be partnering with NCUST to share a little bit about how local schools around our country have done just this and some of the promising practices that they have seen across those schools. Our ED&D team consists of 4 executive consultants who are with us today and is led by our executive director, Russell Coronado. And support is also provided with our amazing program clerk, Adrian Batista. And with that, I want to take just a moment to introduce our incredible facilitation team from NCUST today, starting off with Dr. Joe Johnson, who is the founding executive director for the National Center for Urban School Transformation at San Diego State University. And I could go on and on about his bio, but I'll encourage you to go check it out on the NCUST website because he has incredible accolades. Our second presenter today is Dr. Ruthie Boyd, and she is a former teacher, principal, and instructional superintendent, and has an unparalleled record as well of accomplishment in raising student achievement. And then finally, Kara Riggs is also joining us from NCUST today, and she is an Omaha public school transplant to San Diego and has an incredible 30-year career there as well, with a great range of experience in promoting and supporting public education. And so with that, I am going to turn it over to our incredible presenters.
Hello and welcome, and thank you so much for being here. My name is Joe Johnson. I am the founding director of NCUST, but I would like to give a shout out to our current executive director, Francisco Escobedo. Do you want to say a word, Dr. Escobedo?
Sure, I can say a word, Dr. Johnson. So it's tremendous privilege to be an executive director for this amazing organization that Dr. Johnson created. It's humbling and just has an amazing potential and has made an amazing imprint in really turning around districts. And what you'll be seeing today is just one characteristic that we have seen in exemplary school districts that have made tremendous gains for our students of color, and that is promoting clarity. So I hope everyone I know everyone will gain a significant amount of knowledge. And what's important is how to apply this knowledge, right? Applying and sharing this knowledge is critical because this should not be an exception. It should be the rule. So the challenge for everyone is apply it and share it. And let's get as many schools connecting to this great research that we will be providing you not only today, but in several weeks as well. Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Dr. Escobedo. So NCUST exists for really only one reason. We have this wonderful opportunity to identify and award, celebrate, and study amazing schools where all demographic groups are achieving fantastic learning results. And so while we identify and learn from these schools, our real purpose is to help ensure that more schools have the opportunity to emulate those results. We want to support schools throughout California and throughout this country as they endeavor to create great outcomes for all demographic groups. The bottom line is that in these schools that we have identified and awarded, the truth is that if all schools were like these schools in terms of the outcomes they have achieved, we would not have achievement gaps as we know them. And so we are committed to supporting districts and schools that are passionate about the pursuit of equity and excellence. And this series of workshops that we have the honor of providing in collaboration with the South County SELPA is just one of the many privileges we have in supporting you as you endeavor to help your schools become beacons of success for all demographic groups. So thank you so much for being here.
Hi, I'm Kara Riggs, and like Erin mentioned, I'm a transplant into San Diego after a long career in the Omaha Public Schools, and I'm thrilled to share with you today, frankly, what I wish I would have known more of when I was a principal in Omaha. For a very long time, NCUST has awarded schools that are achieving just crazy, outstanding outcomes that many people want to say to us at first, but that school doesn't look like my school. And the answer is yes, it does. And the practices are what we want to share because it's the recipe that many people are looking for. We know 4 things, and that is that teaching and learning matters, and that we're never going to get better if instruction doesn't get stronger. And so all of the things that we study and promote and share are elements and practices that we see consistently in all of these very high performing schools. We also know that without a strong transformational positive culture that everybody feels valued and respected, all of the stakeholders, like the kids run to school, they run to class, the teachers wouldn't imagine teaching anywhere else, and parents will do anything in their power to make sure their kid stays at that particular school. Culture matters for the academic achievement that schools are looking for. Systems also matter, and we'll talk about some of that in the series of what those systems look like that change the culture of a school to ensure that there aren't barriers in getting in the way of the achievement that you're looking for. And lastly, that leadership indeed does matter, that there's no evidence, we always say, of a school turning around and transforming without a very strong leader that's heading the direction for his or her school family.
So as we endeavor to work with what we have learned, we have tried to share what we've learned in books. And so these are 3 of the books that we have published most recently. Leadership in America's Best Urban Schools talks a lot about what we find principals and school leadership teams doing in these very successful schools. In the book, 5 Practices for Improving the Success of Latino Students, we focus in on 5 high schools where we see amazing success for Latino students. And we see those leadership practices blossom in these 5 schools. In the book, Teaching Practices from America's Best Urban Schools, we talk about 8 important teaching practices. And these teaching practices are the focus of this series of workshops that we're doing in collaboration with the South County SELPA. And then later this year, we anticipate the release of a new book, When Black Students Excel, how typical schools lead Black students to achieve excellent academic results. And that book will be coming out probably in the beginning of 2022. That one will focus on 6 different schools, elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, where we find Black students achieving at levels above the average of all students within their states. And so today, zooming into this book, Teaching Practices from America's Best Urban Schools, we want to focus on one of those 8 practices, one that we refer to as promoting clarity. And so that is the focus of this workshop.
Thank you for joining us. This is Rupi. I'm also with the NCUST Executive Coach. For our goal for this workshop is to make sure that we help you understand how educators in high-performing schools are promoting clarity, what practices they're using in the classroom to promote clarity, and then how schools realize the importance of promoting clarity, their understanding of it among all student groups, and making sure that students often don't experience academic failure. We want to support support educators in your schools as they endeavor to promote clarity through everyday teaching practices. We will have our panelists who are in the classrooms right now and working and doing this within our high-performing schools, share some of these practices to make it something that every school can implement across the board. Thank you.
So what's the answer? What are the ingredients of the recipe? And in high performing schools, we see some of the same things happening. Erin, do you want to push the next one? Thank you. So the first thing that we see consistently in the high performing schools that we study is the coherent ability for all teachers in every classroom to communicate with their kids with clarity what they want them to know and understand by the end of each lesson. That's not anything that we haven't not heard. The difference is that it is coherent in every classroom and that it's a regular practice and that students know what they're going to learn by the end of that lesson or the end of that unit. Also, we know how important it is to plan intentionally lessons that are connected to the standard, and also intentional in that process is the ability for teachers working hopefully collaboratively to talk about and create targets for students so that they will truly and deeply understand the concepts that the standard is asking them to do, to master. And because the teachers are experienced, they can predict what those misconceptions are going to be. And so what are the things that we want to avoid happening so that students can more likely get to mastery? Third is providing students ways to see different or abstract concepts through the tools that the teacher is using. And, you know, these are classrooms that you walk into and consistently you see current anchor charts and resources where kids know exactly where to look to reference the things that they are learning, that their teacher is teaching them and working for them to master. So all of the manipulatives and the tools that the teachers are using that are current in the classroom. And then the last one, Erin, is providing students information they can use to assess and guide their own learning. So they know what a rubric is. They see exemplars. They see constant examples of what it's going to take for them to get to the next level of proficiency and a deeper understanding of those concepts that they're asked to learn. Here's a graphic of what happens in this promotion of clarity when the teacher is very focused on that. First is just ensuring, again, that students know the end in mind. Where is it that we want them to get to? They're very clear about that. They may need extra support along the way, but they are clear about what they need to know to master the concepts. Also helping students see challenging concepts. You know, in our efforts to create equity in our classrooms, we want to make sure that all of those students are achieving at the levels that they are supposed to. And that's what promoting clarity can get us more likely to. Organizing lessons to minimize those misconceptions I just talked about, and then also those different manipulatives and visuals that students can easily access around the room. So what about why? What are the reasons why we push clarity? Why that teachers are so successful in high-performing schools at getting kids to mastery when they are very clear? First is to increase the number of students who understand and master challenging academic concepts. So, you know, we're seeing fewer gaps. They're narrowed when we're using very intentional practices to get to clarity. We're also ensuring that it's not just a few achieving mastery, but it is all. What are the things we're doing that are likely going to get all students in all of our subgroups to the same level of mastery that they so deserve? And third, promoting clarity will increase the likelihood that all students have a deeper understanding, not just a surface level, a basic level, but a deeper understanding of the concepts that they're required to learn.
We are fortunate today to be joined by three wonderful panelists, people who are out there doing this work, making it happen, and truly demonstrating how we can promote clarity in our classrooms and throughout our schools. So we have the pleasure of having a teacher from one of our 2020 award-winning schools, Silver Wing Elementary in the Chula Vista Elementary School District, Sonia Escobar. And Ms. Escobar will be showing us some of the things that she does to promote clarity in precisely the ways that Kara just described. Also, we are fortunate to have Mr. Stephen Fahn, who is a teacher at the Feaster Charter School, also in Chula Vista, California. And he will be sharing how he promotes clarity in his classroom work. And then also, we're fortunate to have the principal of Silver Wing Elementary, Principal Corona, who will be sharing some of the things that she does as an instructional leader to help promote the promotion of clarity throughout Silver Wing Elementary. So we have two great teachers sharing with us what they're doing, but we will also have a wonderful principal who will describe how she is helping make these practices happen school-wide. So as you listen to Sonia Escobar, we're hoping that you will be listening to hear how Sonia ensures that her students will understand clearly what they should know and be able to do by the end of each lesson. And so, in some classrooms, students will be able to describe their activity. They can say, oh, we're completing this worksheet, or we're reading chapter 7, but they really don't know what it is that they're supposed to learn and be able to do by the end of the lesson. So listen to hear what Sonia does to help make sure that her students will know and understand what they need to be able to do. And then also listen to hear what Sonia does to provide her students with information that they can use to assess or guide their learning. So one of the things that makes Sonia's class special and really increases the likelihood that her students excel is that she empowers them with information about what good work looks like, what they should be aiming to achieve, what they should be aiming to accomplish in their work, what they should be aiming to understand. So we hope that you listen for these as you listen to Sonia now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sonia Escobar, like they said. So some of the things that we do here at Silver Wing and that I do in my class to promote clarity is to actually provide students with their success criteria. What is it that they need in order to be successful for that day, for math, for writing, for the whole unit, the chapter. And we just go over it, and I've gotten used to talking to them about it because I feel like the students need to hear it instead of just seeing it on the wall. We have our objectives, but it's more meaningful when I go through it as we're going through the lesson or before. For example, on the right side is for our chapter. My partners and I have gone through our chapters for math and the standards, and we do a backward mapping, and we look at the essential questions. What are the learning intentions? And with that, we develop the success criteria for the whole chapter. But then as we go through each lesson, we go over with the students, well, today, in order to be successful for today's lesson, you will be able to do this at the end, or you will be able to explain this to me. And sometimes it's not just an end result. Like today in writing was, today we're just gonna do some, we're gonna generate some ideas. And the kids are like, that's it? I was like, yes, because good writers, we need to break this apart. Same with math, a reading, we need to chunk it. So today, in order for you to be successful in writing today, we're just gonna come up with some ideas. If you can come up with some ideas for your writing, you may or may not use them. You know you did what you needed to for today for writing. So I do tell the students, and we talk about it every day. Another thing that we use to promote clarity in writing is we have come up with writing rubrics and the success criteria, again, in writing, so that students know what it is they need in order to be successful. And again, I know the other slide showed the success criteria for writing, but it may not be, you're gonna do all this today. We're gonna focus on one, so that they have these obtainable goals and they're successful within their work. I also provide them with different sentence starters, graphic organizers, sentence frames, a lot of visuals, vocabulary. I have a lot of, more than half of my class this year are by English language learners or emerging bilinguals. So I have a lot of them and several students who receive special education services. So I provide them with a lot of these tools in order for them to be successful. And I have found that even those students who are very hesitant to write or come up with ideas, when I have given them a graphic organizer, they're like, oh, I can do this now, because they know what it is they need to do or where they need to go to be successful throughout the day. And I think, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. You know, one of the things I heard from you is that you're not doing those things around clarity for compliance reasons, because your principal is maybe going to come in the room and check off a box that you've done it, but you are using them for what we see in very high performing schools like yours across the country, where there's a purpose and you have the evidence right there in front of you. So thank you for validating that for us. We have Stephen Fan next, who's from Feaster Charter School in Chula Vista. It's a school that consistently has done really, really well. And today we've asked Stephen to talk about how he organizes his lessons so that he's very intentional about making sure that kids are clear about the concepts that they're to learn, and then also thinking ahead of the misconceptions that they may have in getting to mastery of those concepts. And then also the visuals, the manipulatives, the walls that teach, the resources for kids that we'll see around Stephen's room. So thank you, Stephen. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here today. It's such an honor. Hi, everybody. I'm Stephen Fan. I teach third grade at Feaster Charter in Chula Vista. I'm also a second-year Master Teaching Fellow in the Atlas Noise Project, which is a partnership between SDSU, NCUST, and also the National Science Foundation. I want to share with you how I organize a math lesson today to promote clarity and also to reduce student misconceptions. I think clarity starts with the teacher in that we need to know what instructional framework we are using for a particular lesson. And so today for math, I wanted to share with you the problem-solving instructional framework. I wanted to share with you the definition of what problem-solving is according to the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics. And problem-solving is when we engage students in a task for which the solution method is not known in advance. And in order for them to find a solution, they draw on their knowledge. They use the process to develop new mathematical understandings. And this relates really well with the 21st century skills that we are developing in students so that they are ready for college and career. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Thank you. There are 3 parts to the problem-solving instructional framework. I spend the first 5 to 10 minutes to launch the math task that aligns to a Common Core state standards. And I use a checklist to help me and guide me in this part of the lesson planning. In this part, I engage students in understanding the language in the task, the math situation, the vocabulary that might be tricky for our English learners. After this, I allow students 5 to 10 minutes to think of a solution strategy to solve on their own, and then additional 5 to 10 minutes for them to work collaboratively with a partner or in a collaborative group. While students are exploring solution strategies, I check in with students to assess their understanding, to see if there are any misconceptions, to be there to support students who don't have a solution strategy yet. And I'm also paying attention to students who have successful strategies, because strategically, I will call on those students to summarize their strategies and they become the teachers in the classroom. If you empower students to take on the ownership of learning and also giving them the opportunity to defend their thinking, you're not only teaching math, but you're raising mathematicians. And I think that's one of the things that I am pushing myself to help my students realize, that when they're learning math, they need to empower themselves to think like mathematicians as well. After this, I encourage students to use the modality that makes the most sense to them to practice those strategies using a different situation. To be successful with the problem-solving instructional framework, my classroom culture and the learning environment needs to support it. I use Jensen's work here to really encourage a culture where students have the rights to be learners, where they can make mistakes and they're not judged in one moment in time, and they always have the right to revise their thinking. I also provide students a lot of anchor charts in case that they are stuck. They have tools around the room to support their thinking. I also am very strategic of what posters to hang up. In this lesson that I will share with you in a few seconds, students are working with skip counting by 5. They're working with time. And so I hung up a poster with skip counting the clock to show students how to do that in case they get stuck. At their tables, I also set up manipulatives for them. And I'm also strategic in what manipulatives to set out. If we can go on to the next slide to see a few examples of what students did. The standard is there at the top where students are learning about time. The standard is big, and so I broke it up into smaller parts. In this particular lesson, students are working with elapsed time and they're using addition. And with the manipulatives, students use them to add on a clock. They can use base 10 blocks to found the total. They can also use the number line to help them count on. There were a few students who didn't use the math manipulatives, and they can do a lot of the computation mentally, and that's what they did. And I encourage them to show that on their paper, so I have an understanding of what they're able to do. A lot of this work that I do is very supported with years of research. One of them is the cognitively guided instruction research by Thomas Carpenter, which I've linked on that slide for you. It's really important that when I use CGI, I understand the typical trajectory of student understanding and their solution strategies and help them advance in their thinking. And so here the trajectory is students typically start with direct modeling. They go on to counting. And then if you differentiate your learning and know where students are at, you can move them to the next part of their math thinking to more efficient ways of doing math, and that's the derived facts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen. That was phenomenal. You know, it's so clearly laid out and clearly articulated the importance of providing children time and opportunity to learn and make mistakes in the classroom, and also the anchored charts and being strategic on which charts you're putting up. It's not to paint the walls with charts, but the charts that will help students. Thank you so much. Now we will hear from Principal Corona. Principal Corona has a big job. She has to support her staff to understand how to make these habits of mind for her teachers so that clarity is promoted throughout the classrooms, not just in some teachers' classroom, but every single classroom, and every single student at her school is receiving this information. She's going to talk about how she's using and providing professional development, how she uses PLCs to make sure that teachers are provided that opportunity to come up with these. And then when she does her classroom visits, what is it that she's looking for, and what is it that she's using to drive all of this? So it's a circular model. Thank you so much, Principal Teresa. You're next.
Hi, thank you. Yes, if we can go to the next slide. Starting out with professional development here at Silver Wing takes us all the way back to the 2017-18 school year. That was a year where we started out our learning in this area of teacher clarity, and going to the research that if students know what they are supposed to learn, they just might get there. That's why I have that roadmap for you, because my teachers will hear from me that whole idea that because the opposite is true. If we are presenting a lesson and kids don't know where we're taking them, then really, truly, how can they get there? So began with, and Hattie's work, John Hattie's work has been a big part of our, growth and getting to that outlier status here at Silver Wing, and looked at that effect size of teacher clarity of 0.75 with Hattie. But we began within the listening and speaking standards, and that work was a year-long work in looking at the listening and speaking standards, because collaborative conversations and discussions is our school focus. So closing the opportunity gap through collaborative conversations and discussions in both language arts and mathematics. So that was the first area where we looked at learning intentions and success criteria and created those by grade level, K through 6. We're a K through 6 school. And we started there, but we didn't end there. Then learning and intention and success criteria, of course, went into the other subject areas. So that kind of gives a picture of the professional development that we engaged in. Now, as far as professional learning communities and how teachers collaborate to promote clarity, the biggest thing is giving my teachers time to have clarity within their grade level on what is it that students need to learn in this time frame in our subject areas. And I think that's where clarity starts, that teachers understand the standards, what it is that they need to teach in this time period. And then, of course, doing that backwards planning towards assessment and what it is that kids are going to need to be able to do by the end of this time. So they use collaboration to also then, they know the whole unit plan, but to also look at what their learning intentions and success criteria are by days, by lessons. Kara had also mentioned that you don't want compliance. I think it was you, Kara, that had mentioned. And I have here these pictures that one of the things that I did here at Silver Wing was I wanted this work to be who we are at Silver Wing. I didn't want it to be, oh, she or has learning intentions and success criteria up, so that means that she has clarity. And absolutely not. I think that that's one of the ways that we were able to really promote clarity was in, letting teachers teach and have those learning intensive success criteria that their students know what they're learning. It doesn't matter what's on the wall as far as posting. And on these pictures, you see just different ways that my teachers post their learning intentions and success criteria. And most importantly, I have this little picture of my walkthrough tool. A big part of our change at Silverwing was in asking students, what are you learning and why? And I know it seems so simple, but if a student tells you, oh, I'm learning page 89, and the reason that I'm learning it is so that I could finish page 89, that tells you as an administrator, there's work to do within teacher clarity, because kids aren't learning page 89. Kids are learning how to write an informative piece about, whatever, not finishing page 89. So that's just a little snippet of our journey here at Silverwing with clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Joe? Aaron, we'll move to the next one.
Those were all wonderful examples, illustrations of what promoting clarity is all about, and the real evidence of the power of those practices is in the results that you see at both Silverwing and Feaster, as well as the other 165 schools that NCUST has awarded across this country. We see those great learning results for all demographic groups of students. And what people don't always realize is that those results don't come by accident. They come by the practices of teachers and leaders, such as what you just heard. So thank you to our three panelists for their contribution to helping us be clear about what promoting clarity is really all about. So here's a question for you, and we're going to give you an opportunity to respond in a poll here. So, I think Rupi created this example for us, but as I think about the example, I wonder if somehow Rupi knew about some of the things that I did when I was a teacher way back in a different century, because I honestly wasn't focused on what my students were supposed to learn. I was focused on, let's get through this story. So I would engage my students in reading the story without any real discussion of the comprehension skill that they should be developing or practicing. And so the question is, does this activity promote clarity for students about what they need to learn? And so I'm going to have you answer the poll, and then we'll chat a little bit more about it. So you should see the polling window in front of you. Respond yes or no. And then Erin, are you able to tell us the results of the poll or?
Yes, and I was trying to share it, but let me see if I end it. There we go.
Okay, so most of us said no, and so thanks, Erin. So the question then, if we go to the next slide, is what could we do to modify the activity to better promote clarity instead of me just starting the next story? What would have been a better strategy? So you can either put a response in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and speak up and tell us what you think might have been a way to modify the activity, please feel free to unmute and share with us your ideas.
Can I share, Dr. Johnson?
Please.
Awesome. I think, because I do this when we read, and I do tell the students what they're listening for, what we're reading for. So before we read, say, okay, we're listening. As we read, we're listening for clues from the author about traits, character traits. Or if it's informational, we're looking for some very important details that you might want to share with your parents when you get home. So I think just in the beginning of reading, tell them. And then as we're reading, remember, folks or friends, we're listening for these things as we read.
Yes, excellent. Thank you. And I see that we have some other ideas in the chat. One suggesting to first teach the procedures of the comprehension skill you're teaching, so that students know, right, what it is that this is all about, what they're being expected to learn, and revisit the procedure each time you read. So also that's very consistent with what Sonia just said. It isn't just mentioning it once. It may be useful to remind the students about what they're being asked to do, what they're being asked to learn. And so Sierra, thank you for your contribution. And then Roseanne gave a really nice example that also is another way of kind of speaking to what we're really trying to get the students to understand. And so these are both great examples of how if those poor kids that I tried to teach way back in the 70s and 80s, if they had a better teacher, then they would have had the benefit of this kind of teaching that we're talking about right now, where it isn't just getting through the lesson so that we can get to the end of the story or the end of the chapter, but it's really helping the kids understand what it is that they are supposed to be learning, what it is that we want them to know and understand and be able to do. So thank you so much for your contributions, Sonia, Sierra, and Roseanne. This Rupi is, am I doing this one also, or is somebody
Yes,
else going to
you
take this
are.
one? I
This-
am, okay. So, so this question, does the following activity promote clarity for students about what they need to learn? Helping students discuss how by the end of the lesson. And by the way, the end of the lesson may not be today, because as Sonia pointed out, the lesson may be 2 or 3 or 4 days long, and this may just be a piece of the lesson. But by the time this lesson is over, if helping the students discuss how they should be able to compare and contrast the traits of the story's main characters. Does that activity help promote clarity? Thanks to everybody who is working with us and answering this. And so the truth here is, as many of you are acknowledging, that absolutely this is better than the first example that I provided in terms of promoting clarity, because as we talked about at the very beginning of the session, in this example, we're starting in a way that helps the students know what is the end in mind. Now, I am guessing that there are some individuals who marked no here because they could envision some other things that could be done to help make it such that there would be even more clarity. So, as Beatriz pointed out, in addition to this, we might have that visual, that graphic organizer that would help people see what this concept really means. There's so many times when we assume that students are clear about a concept just because the words came out of our mouths. But for many students, the words coming out of our mouths may not be adequate to create that clear image. And so sometimes a visual, like a graphic organizer, as Beatriz is pointing out, could be powerful in helping students with that. And actually Sonia gave examples of that, and Stephen gave examples of that. And someone could have said, and if there were success criteria that would help students know what that meant and what it looked like, that could help as well. So the answer is yes. This is certainly clearer than just starting with reading the story. But as some of you are pointing out, there may be other opportunities to create even greater clarity for our students. So thank you so much for responding.
Thank you, Joe. Now we want to give you the opportunity to kind of go into breakout rooms and share with your colleagues. So how can we make some of these focuses stronger and promote clarity? One thing you'll find in the book, Teaching Practices from America's Best Urban Schools, end of each chapter, it tells you what it is and what it isn't. We took these 3 examples from the book as to what it isn't. And so when you're working in your workout group, we want to make sure that you take a look at these. And if you could take a snippet of this so you have it, just in case the facilitator can't pull it up on the share screen. And how would you make these more clear? I mean, how would you promote clarity in these statements so students are clear as to what it is that they should be able to walk away at the end of this lesson? You've had a chance to practice. Now let's kind of have a smaller group so we can have more of a dialogue and gain a deeper understanding of what it is that we're talking about when we're promoting clarity. Erin is going to put us in breakout rooms, and each of us will be with you to help and support as we move along. Thank you so much. Slide, Erin. Okay. From any group, would somebody like to share how we could make this, the very first one, provide more clarity, expecting students to understand concepts simply by reading text or listening to a lecture? How could we make this provide more clarity to students as to what their work would be? Any group discuss that?
I can share for my group. Fatima was a great, she contributed a lot to our group. For the first one, she mentioned, we talked about how sometimes there's things that we remember we've learned as teachers or educators, and then for some reason we just start teaching and we might forget about a couple of those things. But to remember that our students have different learning modalities or learning styles. So maybe just listening to a lecture or reading a text may not be for that student. So like we've said, have those success criteria, but also for provide what they need, what students need in order to understand the text or the lecture that we are given.
Thank you. Thank you, Sonia. Anyone want to share what their discussion was around number 2?
I can share about number 2. In our group, we talked about the importance of teacher reflection and making time for that, like after each lesson. So the second point talks about, like teaching the same lesson after like year after year, and the time to make changes to that lesson would be like when it's fresh in your mind. So right after you've taught it, think about what went well and what would you change for next year, instead of, next year when you start to teach it, just there's no way you're going to remember. So
thank you, Sarah. It was a great discussion in that room as well. The last one. Did you all run out of time, or were you able to discuss it?
We ran out of time, Ruby.
It's okay, so did we. So I was hoping somebody in this group did.
We did hit on it a little bit with teacher Tanya shared about how she saves higher quality or work products to be able to show the students this is what you're going to be able to do. So how can they submit high quality work if they don't have an example of high quality work? So that's what we talked about for that one.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Principal Corona. As we move on, we wanted to, so when we go to the book on the chapter, you'll see the section in here at the end of each section. It'll tell you what it is when we're talking about promoting clarity and what it isn't, side by side. So it's really great for our dialogue as you're in teacher collaboration or you're preparing. And, the authors, of course, we have the author here, Dr. Johnson, and one of the authors here, they really wanted to make sure that they got their point across. So as you go through each chapter and each practice, this is something you will find in the end of the book. I'm not going to go through and read this because you guys did a phenomenal job in addressing the different characteristics and how to make it what it is when we're talking about promoting clarity versus, the vagueness when it isn't that point. The next slide we want to talk to you about is what is the next steps. We appreciate you coming today. We know this is, everybody's busy and some of you will be able to see it on the video, but what is it that we can help you with? So as you start thinking about it and as you start getting together at your school, we want you to go ahead and contact us, and we gave you the information there, and we will, work with you to help you plan your strategy for promoting clarity school-wide. We will figure out the date and time that works best for all of us. This is, no cost to you because it's provided by the SELPA and through this grant that they're, that's promoting this. So please make sure you get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to assign one of our executive coaches to work with you alongside you to help you plan the next steps and implementing this particular strategy. Designing the professional development session that shares the 4 components and promoting clarity that we learned today. So we have those 4 components up here, and we'll also share the PowerPoint with you. So as you're thinking about planning and thinking about next steps, just send us an email and we will coordinate the time and make sure the executive coach is there. We also want to make sure that you're going into classrooms and, celebrating the staff that is modeling and utilizing these 4 components, and they're promoting clarity, because this is hard work and we start somewhere. So making sure that staff gets the celebration and recognition and sharing is really important to promote and reinforce that behavior as we continue to do that. And then focus teachers in the collaboration meetings to help each other consider how we can continue to improve these learning results by promoting greater clarity. So kind of coming back, and I think Sarah talked about, doing a reflection at the end of each of these conversations, in each PLCs or classroom visits, and finding out what is it that we're doing very well. Let's celebrate these parts. What are some of the things we want to promote and clarify as we continue to do this work? Those are some of just the next steps that are provided for you through the SELPA by contacting NCUST at ncust@sdsu.edu and requesting the NCUST coach for your school. Dr. Johnson, is there anything else you want to add before we moved away from that slide?
I just wanted to first thank you for sharing all of that, but to underscore the fact that this additional support is at no cost to the school. So we are excited at the possibility that at your school you might follow up by sending us an email saying, our school leadership team is going to have a planning meeting on X day at X time, and we'd love to have an NCUST coach be there to talk about how we can better promote clarity throughout teaching at our school. And when we receive that, we will eagerly respond and try to make that work so that we can help you advance the promotion of clarity in instruction at your school. Thanks, Rupi.
Thank you. Aaron, you're up, I believe. So the follow-up is going to be determined between you and us. November 16th is the second workshop that we will continue to talk about and provide clarity in the classroom. So at that point in time, participants will be able to share all the wonderful things that are happening within their classroom. So you'll be able to hear from your colleagues that are out there implementing these practices, and we'll make sure the platform provides that information for you to have a conversation with them.
Thank you so much, Rupi. And while this session the final session is in November. We are very excited to be able to work with NCUST to provide 4 more sessions, which you see here in a similar format, which will have that first session where you will get some of this incredible information about the topics that you see. You'll be invited to have another coaching session with an NCUST team member, and then we'll have that follow-up session as well. You can see our session 2 dates are set, and we will be sending out that flyer shortly with information on how to sign up. We encourage you to sign up again, and then please share this with all of your colleagues, anybody across the state of California. We would love to be able to provide this resource through our grant and through this incredible opportunity that we have to partner with NCUST in order to make sure that these practices are serving our students and providing just incredible access for learning. And then you'll see we have our next 3 sessions. One will be in March, April, and session 4, September and October in 2022, and then finally November, December 2022. And so be on the lookout. We will continue to share the flyers with information on how you can participate in these as the dates approach. So please be on the lookout for that. And now we have some time for some questions with our team.
And you can just unmute yourself if you have a question, or, or if you're more comfortable putting it in the chat, that's fine too. And you can also email any questions to us well at ncus@sdsu.com.
At sdsu.edu.
Thank you, Joe. That's why I have you in the background. Looks like we don't have any questions currently. I think there's a lot going on in people's head. Oh, there's one coming up.
Great question.
Can I share about what we do for young learners in Silverwing? Would that be okay?
Of course.
Yeah, so taking on that challenge of young students that perhaps they're in kindergarten and aren't reading yet, our teachers will, of course, verbalize the learning intention, but they'll show them visuals. This is what you're going to be able to do. So a whole lot of visuals. I have, even in a 3rd, 4th grade combo class this year, the learning objective is posted on the board right along with a little visual of the subject or something they're going to do. The teacher has like more than 50% English learners in the class this year. So a way for young learners is to provide visuals and also to give the learning intention in I can statements, student friendly I can statements. You'll see that in our kindergarten and 1st grade here at Silverwing.
Thank you for sharing that. That's great. And a great question.
There was another question from Sarah in the chat. How do you display success criteria for young learners and struggling readers?
I think that's the question to which Principal Corona was just responding.
Sorry about that.
No problem. And in terms of this, in our book, when we talked about promoting clarity, the one constant was we saw all of these schools doing this, but there was wonderful variety in the different ways that teachers and schools were doing these things. And so there isn't just one way of bringing students to a place where they really understand what it is that we want them to learn. There's lots of ways to do that. And the cool thing is when teachers are coming together, they're thinking through how they can support each other in doing this. They know that they have the support of their administrator as they work on this. And everybody is working together to help create this clarity, knowing that they serve a wonderful array of students who all have different strengths, all have different needs.
Joe, one more thing, and I just want to emphasize what Teresa did so well. Teresa, I led the team on your award trip, so
Yes.
speaking from experience at your school, but clarity from your end is so important. When the leader is very clear to his or her teachers about what she's going to be wanting to see in every single classroom, you avoid, I want Mr. Escobedo for my daughter in 2nd grade. I don't want me. You can ensure them that you have such coherence in the expectations and everything you do is aligned with that clarity, that, every kid has a shot that's equal in every single classroom. So your clarity is very important too, isn't it?
No, I absolutely agree. And always in remembering that, you're layering things and putting things, especially now in pandemic times, in very manageable pieces. It's like if the plate is full, that everything has to be that you're guiding your teachers, you're in there with them, and you have an end goal. But you're bringing them along.
Very nice, thank you. Any other questions from anyone? Well, we hope that you make us work. So we want to hear from you. We want you to invite us to your planning meeting so that we can support you as you think about not just how to do this in 1 or 2 classrooms, but how to make this a calling card of your school. So we are a school that's all about promoting clarity for all of our students. We want to support you in achieving that. And then we want to watch and see the good results come in for your students. And then we want to see you again at the next part of this session, which will be on what day, Erin?
That is on, let me go back, on November 16th.
Yes. And that will be an opportunity to hear from more of you about what you are doing, what you have learned, what you're trying, what are some of the challenges, so that we can continue to learn together about how we can promote clarity for all of our students.
Thank you, everyone, for attending to this session. We look forward to hearing from you. Please don't hesitate to contact us at NCUST@sdsu.edu. Thank you so much.
Very good.
And I'm going to share just our plug and make sure that we thank those that are making this possible, the grant that helps support the ED&D project, and that is the California Department of Education and the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence. So thank you everyone so much for joining us today, and thank you so much to our incredible presenters. And if anybody would like to check out more opportunities as ED&D works towards supporting our districts in making sure that we are providing equity for students across the state of California, check us out on social media and be a part of our community. Sign up for our newsletter and see what other opportunities are out there. Thank you so much, everyone, again for joining, and we look forward to seeing you in November. Thank you.